Welcome, everyone. Happy Thursday. Thank you so much for taking the time to attend today's webinar. It is top of the hour, and I do want to be respectful of your time, so we're going to go ahead and get started. I'm Reneika Lightbourne. I'm truly excited to be joined by Mr. Courtney Buck. He's the president of Southern Tier. Thank you so much, Courtney, for being our featured speaker today.
My pleasure. Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. Courtney's going to cover how to invest in land and vacant lots in your IRA and your solo 401k, the different types of land investment opportunities, whether it's residential or commercial. But before I turn it over, I just want to give you just a high-level overview of exactly what self-direction is, the steps to get started when you're ready to open up your account. If you have any questions, feel free to type those in the question box and we'll answer those as we go, and also allocate some time at the very end as well. Again, my name is Reneika Lightbourne. I'm a business development specialist here at Advanta. I've been with Advanta as an employee since 2019, but I'm also a client of Advanta prior to joining. So self-directing is something that I actively do and something I'm very passionate about. If you have specific questions that you want to kind of do a more concierge one-on-one type, feel free to give me a call, send me an email. I'm happy to talk through your scenario with you. Also visit our website at advantaira.com. It's a great resource for you. So just a little housekeeping, just know that at Advanta, we don't give any tax, legal, or investment advice. All of the information that's going to be presented today is just more so educational purposes. So as always, we encourage you to confer with your professional team. You want to do your due diligence, whether it's your CPA, financial advisor, you want to talk with them before making investments. So just three key takeaways. Just know that any IRA or former employer plan qualifies to be self-directed. With self-direction, you're always in control. You choose the investment that works best for you. Today, we're going to be focusing specifically on land, vacant lots. And then, of course, knowing that all of the income that's generated from that investment flows back into the IRA account or 401k tax-free or tax-deferred. If there's any expenses associated with that investment, it is paid out of the retirement account. So just a little history about Advanta and who we are. We've been in the business for nearly 20 years as one of the leading self-directed IRA administrator in the country. Our focus is, providing you that concierge style service. You have a dedicated account manager as a client of Advanta. Our headquarters is located in Largo, Florida, which is the Tampa Bay area. Advanta also has an office in Atlanta, which is where I'm based. But we do work with clients nationwide, as we have well over $2 billion under our administration. If you have cash that's sitting with us, just know that it is FDIC insured. And then, of course, our educational platform is second to none, where we have subject matter experts like Courtney come on and knowledge share with you. In addition to hosting weekly webinars, we also do other networking events, which includes our Pitch, Promote, Prosper. It's a virtual haves and wants in a sense. So definitely go to our website, check out our events page for future webinars, but also that networking event. My colleague, we also have a podcast. My colleague Alex is the actual host of there. Also, this webinar is recorded. It will be uploaded on our YouTube channel within 24 to 48 hours. So you can always check out that video library. And then, of course, our blog is a great resource, everything relating to the latest news and trends in self-direction as a whole. So exactly what is a self-directed IRA? Just very simply, self-directed just means that it gives you, as the IRA owner, complete control of your retirement funds. It gives you complete control over the investment decision, and also allows you to diversify outside of the traditional markets. You can use IRA funds to invest in real estate. Again, we're going to be focusing on land and vacant lots. So you can do, fix and flip. You can do, multifamily, commercial. You can invest in tax lien and tax deeds. You can also use IRA funds to invest in oil and gas or precious metals. I know that's been a big interest for a lot of people lately with inflation being a major concern. So why do people choose to self-direct? You may look to self-direct for any number or combination of reasons. I'm just going to touch on three of them. One, it's a new source of capital for you. If you have funds that's sitting idle in an old 401k or an IRA, you can elect to roll those funds over or transfer those funds to make that investment without tapping into your personal savings or taking out a bank loan. And then another reason is to the volatility in the stock market. We all see what's going on where it's pretty much taking a beating. Well, with self-direction, it really allows you to again diversify out of those traditional stocks and bonds, whereas you can take retirement funds and put it into tangible assets like land or real estate. And then, of course, the tax benefits, having those rents, those profits, those dividends flow back into your retirement account, tax-free or tax-deferred, depending on the type of account that you have. In terms of the different types of accounts that can be self-directed, it's the accounts that you're already familiar with. It's the, for individuals, if you have, traditional IRAs tax-deferred, meaning you get the tax break up front, you pay taxes later. Whereas with a Roth IRA, you elect to pay tax now, grow the account over time when you take it out at retirement, as long as you have that account for 5 years. And also, you're 59 and a half, when you take those funds out in a Roth IRA, you pay no taxes. If you are, self-employed, have a small business or a side business, you can certainly look to self-direct employer plans like SEPs, Simples, and solo 401ks. A lot of real estate investors like the solo 401ks or individual K plan just because it has more flexibility, higher contribution limits. Some smaller or lesser known accounts that can also be self-directed are an educational savings account and also HSAs to cover medical related expenses. With HSAs, just know that you have to have a high deductible plan, so do confer with your plan administrator on that. And then any former employer plan qualifies, whether it's an old 401k, 403b, or a TSP type plan. The key thing to remember is the contribution limits varies between a different type of account. And then, of course, with a Roth, the distribution is tax-free at retirement. The only time you will see some type of restriction is if it's a current employer plan and you're not yet 59 and a half, then most times that employer would restrict you or prevent you from moving it if you're still employed with them. You can certainly reach out and see if they would make an exception to allow you to move a portion. But if it's a former employer plan, you can move it at will. In terms of the contribution limits for 2022, if you have a traditional Roth IRA, you can put in $6,000 if you're under the age of 50, $7,000 if you're over the age of 50. If you have a SEP, you can put 25% of your compensation, not to exceed $61,000. With Simple, you get to put in $14,000 plus your employer can match 3%, up to 3%. With a solo 401k, because you're contributing twice as employee and employer, you can possibly put up to $61,000 if you're under the age of 50, or $67,500 if you're over the age of 50. For an educational savings account that you can open up for your children, grandchildren, you can put in $2,000 per year per child. With HSAs, for individuals, you can put in $3,650. If you have a family HSA plan, you can put in $7,300. Or if you're 55 and older with an HSA, you can put in an additional $1,000 as a catch-up. When you're looking to get started with us, we've really streamlined that for you in 3 simple steps, and we'll be there to walk you through. But first and foremost, you would open up your account by filling out our application. You can do it electronically via DocuSign. You will have a dedicated account manager that's going to be with you for the life of your account with us. And then step 2 is funding the account. If you have an old 401k, it'll be a direct rollover from that previous employer plan. If you have an existing IRA, it'll be a transfer trustee to trustee. There's no tax liabilities for you to do that. And or you can also make an annual cash contribution as long as you've earned income. And then finally, step 3 is start investing. What is it that you have an interest in? Is it buying, that vacant lot that's in your neighborhood, or in a general area that you have your eye on? And with that, I'll go ahead and turn it over to Courtney.
Okay, thank you so much. Okay, thanks to everybody for having me here. Thank you, Reneika and Advanta, for inviting me. This is the second time I've presented. I am a client of Advanta and have joined their customer service for several years now, and it's a pleasure helping them out when they ask me to speak. So over the past few years, I've shifted from the single family space to multifamily, and then more focused on land. And I just want to talk a little bit about how we find land, how we look at land, how we invest in it, various strategies, and how I'm using and how other people are using their IRA or old 401k money for this land investing. So this is a quick outline of what we're going over today. And again, if there's any questions while I'm talking, by all means, put that in the chat or let Reneika know, and would love to answer those as we go along. So many of you have heard this phrase, Mark Twain, buy land, they're not making it anymore, unless you live in an area like I live in, near the Gulf Coast. it's a fixed amount of it that's in the world, and this is something that's attracted this to me quite a bit over the past 6 months, where you can't make any more of it. It's a fixed asset. But before I go into that, I wanted to introduce you guys to myself and my family. I'm sure I know several of you on the cast now from Atlanta. I used to live in Alpharetta, Georgia, and recently my wife and 4 kids, we moved to Santa Rosa Beach to be closer to the ocean and to enjoy all that has to have here. I'm originally from Missouri, graduated from the Missouri University of Science and Technology, then the University of Oklahoma. I was in the Army and disarmed roadside bombs for a living, believe it or not, for several years. And then once I was honorably discharged, I worked for the various intelligence agencies, USAID and CDC, before starting in real estate investing about 3-4 years ago. So the traditional way I started, and the traditional way that many have started, is with single family homes and finding distressed homes and approaching the owner directly and trying to obtain those homes at a discount in order to buy and hold or to flip those. Oftentimes you're using your own money, and this was the way I started and many of you have started. And over time I shifted away from that. I started raising capital for single family homes, then multifamily homes, and now primarily do most of my business, probably 80% of what I do, is land investing. And there's several reasons why. Finding landowners that simply do not want their land is a much easier process. The conversation is a lot more friendly. These aren't distressed landowners. Most of them just don't want the land anymore. And what we're finding is that people bought land years ago with the intention of living on it or retiring on it or leaving it to their kids, and none of that happened. The kids grew up and they moved away from home, and now the original goal had changed. And also partnering with various people, whether it's builders, developers, people who want to lease the land out for hunting or ranching or farming. There's many different exit strategies that we'll go over here in just a few minutes. So over the next few slides, I'm going to talk a lot about the pros of land investing, but I'd be doing you a big disservice if I didn't go over just a few of the cons real quick about land investing, and just wanted to get that out there. So if you've ever invested in multifamily in the past or owned single family rentals, you get this beautiful thing called depreciation. So that's something that really doesn't exist with land. If I invest in land and it's cash flowing, I'm not getting depreciation from it because there's nothing to depreciate with raw vacant land. And also another con is there's virtually no bank financing for land. So to leverage a bank's asset to purchase large tracts of land really doesn't exist. You can, if you're building on it, if you're building a commercial development or an apartment or a home on it, it can be part of that lump package, but just regular bank financing to buy 20 acres or a quarter-acre lot really doesn't exist. So why invest in land? The first one is, like I mentioned, it's a constant supply. Land is a commodity, but unlike many of the commodities that exist, whether it's oils, metals, cattle, houses, the demand only fluctuates. The supply of land is fixed. So what exists now, at least for the near term, that's all that exists. Builders can build more, you can breed more cattle, you can pump more oil, but the land we have is the land we got. And the best thing I like is low maintenance. I've owned single family rentals in the past. I love taking care of my tenants, but I don't have to do anything to the land I own. I don't have to do anything to the land I finance out or on the notes that I produce from land. There's no midnight calls, nobody tearing up my land. I mean, I guess you can if you really wanted to try hard to destroy land, but there's nothing to vandalize, nothing to steal, and I don't have to manage any tenants. At most, I have to manage the note and making sure the note is getting paid on a monthly basis. Also, it's a low barrier to entry to invest. On the multifamily deals, the ones that I've helped syndicate or raise capital on, it's typically a $50,000 minimum investment to participate as a limited partner. On bigger deals, it's more, 75,000 to 100,000. If it's a single family home, in order to get into it, at least in Atlanta or the surrounding areas, it's $200,000 to $300,000 plus for initial purchase and flip. But with land, it can be as little as $1,000, and it can actually be less than that. There's cheaper lots that can be bought by people that just simply don't want to pay the taxes on them anymore. So another thing I wanted to mention, I'm glad I highlighted this, is with investing in land in an IRA, there's no UDFI. No UDFI that you have to worry about. So this is the unrelated debt financing income. So when you raise money to purchase a multifamily property and you invest through an IRA into that partnership, there's often that unrelated debt financed income tax you have to pay with land that just doesn't exist, because we're not using other debt and syndicating a deal. It's just an initial investment partner or your own money, and you're not dealing with outside debt for the most part. So if I go to a RIA tonight in Atlanta, I live in Santa Rosa Beach, but I'm in Atlanta about once a month, I'm probably the only land person there. Even if there's 100 other real estate investors there, I'm the land guy now. So unlike the competition where in single family homes where it's driving up housing prices, and even there's competition in multifamily from institutional buyers such as life insurance companies or hedge funds, land, there's just not a lot of competition with it. If I'm looking to buy a parcel of land, I'm usually the only person looking at buying this land. It's my ability to market the property out, to flip the land, or to create a note with an end buyer is the only competition I have is myself. So I've mentioned it a few times, there's multiple exit strategies. So you can either flip the land similar to a house. There's a thing called a lease purchase agreement, where essentially somebody, if I have a buildable lot, or if I have acreage in South Georgia, I can lease that land to an end buyer. And then once that lease or the amount that's owed on that lease is paid down, they assume ownership of the property. And this does a couple things I'll talk about later, but I'll mention them now. If I have a note built on a piece of land, and if someone defaults on the note, I have to go through a proper foreclosure process, and that can take months and is rather expensive. If someone defaults on a lease agreement, it's like missing a payment or a couple payments on renting an apartment. It's a simple piece of paperwork. I can take the land back and I can release it out to somebody else or remarket it out for a flip. I can create a note, or I can subdivide the land and sell out the various parcels. That's something I have yet to do. I would like to do, but you need a fairly good size chunk of land to do that with. Demand for land. Oh, go ahead.
Courtney, I did have a question that came in. So what are your thoughts about investing in the many advertised mountain or lake properties, such as in Blue Ridge, Georgia?
In the what kind of properties in Blue Ridge? Say again.
It says, what are your thoughts about investing in the many advertised mountain/lake properties, such as in Blue Ridge, Georgia, in terms of, I guess, vacant lots that they may have in those areas? Is that an area that you focus on or familiar with?
I'm familiar with, and if you're thinking about the postcards, probably all of us have received trying to sell land up in that area. That's land that's already been bought by an investor and probably split up and is being marketed out on the open market at market value. What I like to do, and what I'm actively doing now in North Georgia, is going direct to the owner of the land and trying to purchase it directly from them. But I love North Georgia. If you're in Atlanta, that's your kind of a weekend escape for a lot of people, and people are actively looking to purchase land in that part of the country. So yeah, there is demand for that. We'll go more into it later, but demand for land is really high right now. With COVID, I mean, admittedly, I worked at the Centers for Disease Control during COVID. I know what happened to the demographics of people wanting to move outside of the city, people moving to more rural areas, having more land to play on, to do things on, to camp on. there is a big demand for land, and I can only see that increasing for the near future. Scaling has been really easy for me. Creating numerous notes, this is something that I love as passive income. It's not completely passive because I have to manage the note and make sure that people are paying, and the same thing with the lease agreements. But it's something that you can have with multiple small parcels of land, is to purchase for $1,000 or $2,000 and create a note that's worth $8,000, $9,000, $10,000 and have payments for several years on that land. If you have a great title company, it's really easy to do. And like I mentioned, cash flowing, I love this. I love the monthly income, and even though right now it's in smaller chunks, it's great to see those deposits every month. I won't read all this out, but this is kind of the multiple possibilities to make money with vacant and raw land. And when I mention vacant and raw land, I'll go more into that into the next slide, but this can be everything from 1/10 of an acre to hundreds of acres. It can be more rural, it can be in the town, in the path of progress, but you can see there's so many different exit strategies for raw land than just building a house on it.
Courtney, there's one question, another comment. First and foremost, thank you and your wife for your service to the country. That was a comment that came in, so yes. Next, the question is, can you explain what you mean by note?
Oh yeah, sure. Absolutely. So if you've ever bought a car and had car payments, that's a note. So if I go, or if I did buy a car for $20,000 and I'm going to pay it off over 5 years, that's the creation of a note with either the bank or the dealership. So I'm agreeing to a certain length of time, let's say 60 months, 5 years, and I'm going to pay the owner of that note, which is the bank or the dealership, a certain amount for that many months. And you can do the same thing with land, where I can purchase a property for $1,000 using simple math, create a note that's worth $6,000, and they agree to pay me so many months, a certain amount each month. And that usually includes a down payment that covers the initial purchase of the land. Okay, kind of talk how we use an IRA and old 401k money for this. So this is kind of the common land to invest in. There's lots of different land, but these are the 4 big groups of land we have. The first one that a lot of people immediately default to is farmland. Many may not know, but 30% of the farmland and ranch land is leased or rented to other farmers and ranchers. And I can personally attest to this. My wife is from a family of corn farmers in Minnesota, and my family is from Missouri, and we had dairy cattle. And we leased our land from other landholders for more grazing land. And my wife's family leased land in order to grow more corn. They didn't own that land, but they still had a better profit at the end of the year by having other land, but they didn't have to pay the premium for the land itself. So ranch and farmlands sells at a premium. You're rarely going to get this discounted. I personally do not go after farmland or ranch land. I would love to, but finding it at a discount is nearly impossible because the sales are typically to other farmers in the area, or it's inherited land. They leave that land to their heirs. And if the heirs don't want it, they'll sell it to their neighbor. And on the rare chance it goes to market, it's going to full market value. Buildable lots. This is my favorite right now for several reasons. So we've all driven down subdivisions or neighborhoods in towns and cities where there's that one lot that's never been built on. These are perfect for home builders right now. For a home builder that maybe isn't building at scale using large tracts of land in the suburbs, they can build a spec home on a 1/4 acre in downtown Atlanta or in the more rural areas and suburbs. And what's really been a surprisingly big winner for me is rural lots, so 1 to 2 acres that somebody can park a mobile home on or an RV on. Housing is painfully expensive right now for a lot of Americans, even for those of us who have great jobs. Mobile homes are kind of like the last vestige of affordable housing for a lot of people. Mobile home parks are great. I like mobile home parks, and I've personally invested in those. But at the same time, that rent never goes away for people. So if they can purchase a small lot on the outskirts of town, put in simple utilities with a septic tank, and be able to park a mobile home on it, this is a win-win-win for everybody. And this is literally, my Facebook is dinging right now with people looking at a plot of land I have in South Alabama, looking for mobile home friendly lots. Unfortunately, inside city limits, most people do not allow mobile homes inside their city, but on the outskirts is fair game. Path of growth. Anyone who lives in Atlanta or any city you live in, you know how the city's growing. I lived in Alpharetta on the north side. Atlanta's growing north and south, and I'm sure all along the corridors of the interstates. So think of the corridors on how your city is growing, and then look maybe 10 miles past that. 10 miles in 10 years. That's where the next developments are going to be. It's like this slow moving tidal wave that's moving to the outskirts of the city. And then rural acreage. This is what I call adult playland. Whether you want a weekend cabin or to go hunting or go camping, people are looking for acreage. And you mentioned the Blue Ridge in the north part of Georgia. That is a very, very, very hot area for people to want to buy mountain land and to have a place to call their own up in a beautiful place, and maybe put a small cabin or an Airbnb. So these are the common lands that I look at and people are looking at in general. There's other types of lands, including commercial, that's zoned commercial, but those typically go at market value too.
Okay, Courtney, I have two questions that came in. How
Sure.
do you verify if a mobile home or RV can be put on the lot before you market the lot for sale?
Sure. So every county has a zoning office, or you call the city engineers. And either one, it could be in the same office, either one can tell you whether a mobile home is authorized on that lot. And this is just kind of an insider tip, but if you call the county or call the city, have them send you a map of where the zone lines exist, so you know for sure what you can build on that property. Some vacant lots you simply can't build anything on because maybe there's a spring on it or other environmental issues, but the city can tell you everything.
Okay. Next question is, where do we get more information, or do you offer training on the how-to of these types of investments that you're talking about?
Yeah, I don't personally train. It's not something I want to do, but if you want to email me, and I'll have my email at the end of the presentation, I'll happily guide you to someone who taught me, and they've taught a lot of people how to do this kind of investing. They've been great.
All right, thank you.
Mm-hmm. So Reneika mentioned precious metals at the beginning of the presentation. Land can kind of do the same thing. With precious metals, you want to have it as a store of value and a hedge against inflation. Some people do this with land. So land investing at the most basic, simplest level is buying a parcel of land and what we call in the industry banking it. You're banking it in your IRA. You're buying it inside your IRA or an old 401k, and you're letting it sit there with the expectation that it will appreciate over time. Now, it may only appreciate at 2 or 3% a year, but frankly, that's better than the S&P 500's done since January. And that's something that people, it's kind of a sure bet. If you own 10 acres in South Georgia, it's not going to lose its value. It might lose some up and down, but it'll never be worth nothing. So the cons of this is you still have to pay taxes on it. You can bank property, but you still have to pay taxes on it. It's also smart to have liability insurance on vacant land. Most people don't. I do. Everything I own has liability insurance on it, especially particularly the land that has that I lease out to people. And then there's private funding. You can use your funds inside an IRA or an old 401k to purchase land, to do like buy and hold, and possibly lease it out to a rancher, or lease out timber rights. That's another conversation. Lease out hunting rights. That's something that you can do and hold 1 to 5 years, possibly more. Payments are tax-free in the right account, but Reneika can steer you to the right account that would make sense for that. Note creation, I've already spoke about this. I love note creation and lease agreements because every payment I get, it's tax-free. I don't have to pay taxes on it. The con to that is I don't get to spend it at my favorite restaurant right away until I'm 59 and a half. But this is something that you can grow an account very quickly by creating notes and lease agreements. And it's been great for me so far. So these are 2 real examples. These are not pie in the sky, crazy examples. Both of these I have done. So the small lot example, that's 0.3 acres, not 34, had a market value of $8,000, and this was a lot in South Georgia. Used self-directed IRA funds, bought it for $1,260, and this include all closing costs. Created a lease purchase agreement for 60 months. That's how much $108.33 was paid to me, plus another $28 for taxes, insurance, and a processing fee. And at the end of this lease, this gentleman will own this land free and clear. He could have never gotten a bank loan for this. At least I don't think so. He didn't have the money initially to pay $8,000 for it, but now he has a place to park his RV, and that's exactly what he's doing now. And at the end of the 60 months, it's his piece of land. He doesn't have to pay rent on it anymore like you do at a storage facility. And then the larger acreage, this was sort of a slam dunk. This is actively going on right now. 20.68 acres in the mountains, market value of $220,000. Purchased it for $91,000. An end buyer put $50K down, and we created a note for 180 months or 15 years. Is that right? Yeah, 15 years at 8%. He's responsible for all the taxes and liability insurance. And since he's under a note, he owns the property. But the only stipulation is he can't build anything on it, but he doesn't want to, which works out great for us. The lender I use, I pay $1,104 per month for 120 months at 8%, and he's in first position. Total money returned to the funding partners, $132,480 over the length of the note. And he's protected by an asset worth far more than the loan amount itself. So this is all my contact information, all my social media. By all means, if you have any more questions, let me know here, or you can email me later. I'm also in Atlanta about once every month and a half. Or if you're ever down in the 30A Santa Rosa Beach, Destin area, please let me know and grab lunch. But what questions do you have?
Thank you so much, Courtney. Yes, great presentation, great information. I do have questions coming in, so just bear with me one moment as I read them off to you. So if the land is surrounded by other parcels, do you recommend fencing it in order to prevent claims of unauthorized entry?
You mean like trespassing? Is that what you meant?
Yeah, like if there's land surrounding or other, vacant lots surrounding your property, do you fence it off just to, yes, avoid trespassing or any type of claims or dispute of someone infringing on property you own?
I wouldn't spend the money to use to put up a fence. Fencing is expensive, but I do post no trespassing signs if I can. Some of the land I own, I've never been to. I've never been in a dispute with any of the neighbors. I have heard of people disputing access rights more than ownership rights. So things like easements and the ability to get to other land, that's been in dispute before. But no trespassing signs and having liability assurance is the best protection I've seen so far.
Good, makes sense. Next question is, do you inspect the land to ensure there's it's not dense brush or trees or other issues before you buy or get on the contract?
Yeah, I do the biggest portion of that after I already have it under contract. Now I have a contract that I can, if I find something, maybe they've been dumping, um, dumping trash or old TVs or whatever, if they've been abusing the land, I can get out of that contract. But the biggest due diligence portion of it is after I already have it under contract. Most of the due diligence I do is sending photographers out there. I'll send a photographer who will inspect the land as well. We'll basically walk the perimeter. If it's a bigger parcel of land, I'll hire a drone photographer, one for the marketing piece, and two, just to get better eyes on it than maybe an old Google Earth image from 2010.
Okay. Next question is, do you get the land through tax delinquent sales?
No, I go direct to seller. I send out postcards or letters to sellers, and I'm pretty picky on which counties I go into, but they can't be the hottest counties in America. But no, it's direct to seller. The one thing almost all my land has had in common is someone has inherited it. So maybe a son and daughter inherited land from their dad, and that land was, dad's dream, and now they don't want it anymore. They just want to sell it for what they can get out of it. Almost all my land I've purchased has been inherited.
Okay. Question is, go ahead, I'm sorry.
Go ahead. Oh yeah, I don't purposely look for probate land. It just happens to be that almost everything I put under contract is someone has passed at some point.
Okay. Next question is, do you invest nationwide or do you have a specific area that you focus on? And how well do you understand that specific city that you're investing in?
Yeah, right now I only invest in Alabama and Georgia. It's just because I'm familiar with Georgia, especially around Atlanta. I used to live in Alpharetta. And then Alabama, I was stationed there in the Army. It's really easy for me to get into Alabama if I need to. I live in Northwest Florida. So it's just a familiarity of the market. And there's a lot of people moving to this part of the country.
Okay, so I have more questions, but there's two comments. Yes, the presentation is being recorded. It will be uploaded to our YouTube channel within 24 to 48 hours. You'll also get an email notification of that recording. If you do want a copy of this slide, I do have it, so feel free to send me an email and I can provide that to you. Also, too, one of the audience referenced that they have other or direct, they also have other listeners that would be interested in a good source of information. Courtney has provided his contact information, so you can feel free to reach out to him directly or refer or redirect other people that you know would be interested in his content or the information that he's looking to provide. Question is, how do you filter your mail list to limit the quantity of mail and to target what you want? So how do you filter your mail list to limit quantity of mail and to target what you want?
Oh man, that's a great question. That could almost be a day-long seminar. How I filter it is mainly location. So like I said, Alabama and Georgia. Right now, I don't do inside the city limits of like Atlanta or Birmingham or Montgomery, just because there's just fierce competition right now for buildable lots. Home builders are fighting over those lots, and I can't really make a profit on those lots. So I'm looking in more rural areas. So this is the big umbrella how I filter. I like rural areas. I like Alabama and Georgia. What else? I don't. If the property market value is only worth $500, like a landlocked piece next to a factory, between a factory and a phone antenna, I don't want that kind of land. I can't sell it. Nobody wants it. It has some value, but almost none. I want something an end user can buy and enjoy. I think there was part two of the question. Was there another one?
So next question is, have you heard of Conservation Reserve Program, CRP, using Farm Service Agency, FSA, to pay a yearly rental payment to remove environmental sensitive land from development? Are you familiar with that?
Wow, no, but I'm writing that down right now. I have not, but thank you. I'll look into it.
Yeah. Conservation Reserve Program, CRP, using Farm Service Agency, FSA, to pay a yearly rental payment to remove environmentally sensitive land from development. Okay, so thank you for knowledge sharing that. Let's see, next question I have, just bear with me one moment. How do you partner with passive investors, or how is the deal structured?
Yeah, so I will, usually I get a deal under contract first, and then I'll either call or send an email message to, I have a pool of investors that want to invest in land. I'll let them know about the deal, where it's at, what it looks like, some drone footage, what I purchased it for, what I hope to sell it for or create a note for. And then I pay monthly interest for the term that we agree on. I need to have the payment to the investor be less than what I'm making per month, so I'm not, there's no gap that I have to fill. But these are longer term loans. It can be a minimum of a year. It's more likely 4 or 5 years.
Okay, and that was a question. How long do you typically hold your investments for?
Yeah, I mean, I've done up to, I'm in the middle of borrowing money for 10 years right now, for one property, which will be great because I'll be paid for almost 15 years for that one. But typically not that long. That's an exception, and that's going to be a slam dunk for everybody. For the person buying it, me and my investor, they're going to be getting paid a long time, but typically 5-6 years.
Okay, and do you invest in your own deals alongside of the passive investors in every deal?
I invest with the marketing is expensive for this. I invest that way, but I try to use as little of my own money on big deals as possible because it improves cash flow on those kind of deals. With smaller deals, like less than 10,000, I use my money on all of those deals. But it just if you've ever borrowed money for a house flip or for a buy and hold project, it really messes with the cash flow when you intermingle funds with yours and the investors, and it makes for a simpler transaction at title when it's investor, purchaser, and then the end buyer.
Okay. Question is, what rate are you currently paying for a 30 or 40K loan?
Almost all of mine have been between 7 and 8%.
Okay. Next question is just how often do you communicate or send updates to your investors?
So my investor pool is pretty small right now. But people have been investing with me for years on the single family side. So we're Facebook friends. We see what each other are doing, often, just in life through social media. But as far as like official, here's what your land is doing every 3 to 6 months. It's not like an apartment complex where there's a lot of like a part of an apartment complex is getting flipped or improved. The land is doing what it does. It just kind of sits there. The most important thing they want to know is the health of the note, and if the end buyer or end leasee is paying their bills. If someone is late on paying a lease payment or a note payment, I immediately convey that to the lender. Now we use ACH withdrawal, so all my payments that are made towards the land are automatically come out of a checking account. They don't have to cut a check, or they don't get sent a bill like from your doctor. It's an auto withdrawal. So that's only happened a couple times where they didn't have quite enough in their checking, and it was resolved in less than 2 weeks.
Okay, next question is, are you looking for land to build residential or for development for yourself, or do you sell it to a developer?
Yeah, I'm not there. I don't have the education to develop yet. I would love to partner with somebody someday on that, but as far as tackling that on my own right now, I don't have the skill set yet, and I don't have the experience yet. So I'm not going to risk investor money trying to do that until I can partner with somebody who is a professional at that. So yeah, right now I would sell to a developer, but I wouldn't try to develop myself.
Okay, makes sense. Question is, do you have a minimum investment requirement?
No. No, I have contemplated starting to borrow money on smaller deals, even down to $5,000, just because it would drastically improve cash flow and bookkeeping. So I'll probably start borrowing on smaller deals here soon.
Okay, a question that came in. I know you originally started with single family, then a multifamily, and now land. So the question is, for your single family investors, how are you locating single family homes? Do you mail and look for discounts, or mail to rural areas, or some other way?
Good question. I'm not marketing for single family homes anymore. Financially, it doesn't make sense to me or the people that were loaning me money. The market's gotten too hot in every place I like to purchase. So until things cool down or there's a correction, I'm not buying any single family homes anytime soon. I still am raising money for multifamily, but that's even slowed down. Land's been really, really, really easy to find property, invest in the property, and then find in buyers. So that's where my focus is now.
Okay, question is, I think you mentioned this in the presentation, but came back. What are some of the risks or cons to land investing?
Yeah, the con and the biggest one is if you own a single family home or if you're a limited partner on a multifamily project, the depreciation is outstanding, and that's money, you can depreciate against your income. Now, talk to your CPA about this. I'm not giving advice on tax planning, but I can't depreciate 10 acres in South Georgia. There's nothing to depreciate. There's no structure. There's not even a fence. It's a slab of dirt, and I just can't. I can't depreciate it. So that's the biggest con. The other big con is you can't find bank financing. Bank financing just hardly exists on this kind of investment.
Okay, great questions, by the way, and thank you so much, Courtney, for just plowing through. The next question that came is, how do you protect against environmental issues that may not be disclosed by the current owner?
Yep, that's an outstanding question, and this was where working with a mentor really helped me to begin with. So you can go to the EPA. If you're looking for environmental issues, you can go to epa.gov, and there's overlays that overlay on maps that you can plug in the parcel or address of the land that you own, and to see if there's any environmental issues. Now, when people think of environmental issues, they think oil spills or people cooking methamphetamines and dumping those chemicals onto the ground. We're looking for small stuff, like maybe there was an oil change place that used to be here and they dumped a couple quarts of oil in the back. That still pops up as an EPA violation. So EPA is great. The local county health department or the environmental department can answer those questions too, if they've ever had to respond to a violation or know of any issues. And another good question, and I need to add this into the display I have, the presentation is wetlands. Wetlands can kill a deal. If I'm looking at a few acres and 90% of it is covered in wetlands as designated by the United States Geological Survey, you can't build on it, you can't move it. It's pretty, maybe you can do some duck hunting on it, but you can't build on it. So when it comes to wetlands, the United States is very into protecting those areas. That doesn't mean they can be moved later by the city through development and an agreement with the United States or the state itself, but it's incredibly costly. So EPA, go to epa.gov for environmental issues. Wetlands can make or break a deal.
Okay, great. I think that covers all of the questions that came in. So if you have any more questions, feel free to type those in the question box. With that, Courtney, again, great information as always. Thank you so much for being our presenter today. If you want to get in contact with Courtney to learn more about the opportunities he has, feel free to give him a call, send him an email, or check out his website. If you want to talk more specifically about, opening up your self-directed account, I'm happy to assist with that. You can feel free to give me a call, send me an email. If you want a copy of the slides, just feel free to email me and I'll respond back with a copy of it. And any closing or parting words before we end the webinar, Courtney?
No, like I mentioned earlier, if I don't do training on this stuff, but I can happily guide you to the folks I learned from, and they've been fantastic to learn from. But other than that, email me, call me. I love talking about land. It's my favorite investment now.
Wonderful. Thank you everyone again for taking the time to join our webinar, and the recording will be up in about 24 to 48 hours. With that, I hope you all have a great rest of your day.